Good morning. This webinar offers closed captioning. To enable closed captioning, click on the live transcript button on the bottom of your screen and choose your preferred method. Welcome to the Chicago Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection webinar. Please note any website or email that I mentioned will be posted in the chat box. For those seeking business licensing assistance, you can visit the Small Business Center at City Hall or call 312-74-GO-BIZ. Also, business licenses can be applied for or renewed online at chicagobusinessdirect.org. If you are part of the BACP Entrepreneur Certificate Program, you can get credit for joining this webinar by sending an email to bacpoutreach@cityofchicago.org. If you want to learn about the program, please visit chicago.gov/businesseducation. Also, this webinar is being recorded and will be available at youtube.com/Chicago BACP. I will post the mentioned information in the chat box. We encourage attendees to ask questions. Please use the chat box to send your questions. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Please note that the views, information, and opinions expressed during this webinar are solely those of the presenter and do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of the Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection or the City of Chicago. Today's webinar will be How to Write a Business Plan, What You Need to Know, presented by Donna Rockin. Donna?
Good morning, Geraldine. I'm laughing because of your disclaimer, but hopefully I won't say anything so controversial the city would be embarrassed. So this is pretty straightforward. Let me see, why is the slide, now my slide down is not working. Well, I'll just press next. Anyhow, this is who I am. I've been around a long time. I'm semi-retired, but I still do some consulting. I still mentor at 1871, and I'm still happy to always speak for the Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection. Before we begin, and I will post this because the man's name is hard to spell when we get to the chat, I can type it in. There is a book called The Business Model Generation. And next time I will do a slide and add it so it's in the slide deck, but it's The Business Model Generation. In the book, this is where the hard part comes in. It's Alexander Osterwalder, and that's Osterwalder. And what he invented that I did give to Geraldine and BACP, which she will post later this week, is the business model canvas. And the business model canvas is a one-page layout that helps you organize your thoughts before you even write your business plan. It helps you with, what are you going to sell? Who are you going to sell it to? What activities you need to get done? What resources do you need? What's your value proposition? What are you selling and to whom? So it's just a very good one-page organizer for your thoughts before you go to write your business plan. And they tell you when you read, and don't even buy the Business Model Generation, go to the library, get the book. We have wonderful Chicago public libraries, and do not buy the ebook. The ebook is helpful, but the first sentence in the ebook says, this book is better as a book because it's a very visual book and it is better if you have the real book. So do not buy the ebook. But what it helps you do is figure out very succinctly, and it tells you to use little sticky notes because sometimes you think it's a customer, but it's really a resource. You can move the ideas around on sticky notes. So that's where you should begin with the business model canvas, which I did give you as a handout. And then the book is The Business Model Generation. And next. So a business plan is a written document that clearly defines the goals and of a startup or an existing business, because this is a living document. Even if you have an existing business and you're thinking, how do I have to reinvent myself, or how do I stay current? All those companies that had to reinvent, all those restaurants, their takeout business, even if they were fine dining and never did takeout or rarely did takeout, sometimes you have to reinvent yourself, and a business plan is a good place to start. So it's for new businesses or existing businesses, and it outline specific methods for achieving the goals you want to achieve. So what it's included, you have an executive summary, a business description, a product or service description. And when we talk, they're interchangeable, whether you're having a business that sells a real product or your business is a service. You're an IT person, you're lawn care people, it's interchangeable. A marketing plan, an operations and management plan, and a financial plan. And even though the executive summary comes first, and by the way, in this, in the items that Geraldine will post, there is like a Q&A document that asks you all these questions. And when you write complete sentences, you wind up with a business plan. And a business plan doesn't have to be ultra long. You just have to explain to your lender or to somebody who's going to give you money exactly what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, how you're going to make revenue, and how you're going to pay them back. So the executive summary, while it comes first, you actually write it last. If you write it last, you will be able to give a much more succinct description of what it is. And basically it's a few paragraphs, 1 or 2 paragraphs that summarize your unique business. And sometimes the uniqueness of your business is just that there is none other in the neighborhood. Chicago is known for being able to, I think we have 72 different neighborhoods. And I'm in Streeterville, you may be in Wrigleyville, or you may be in Lincoln Park, or, some other place. And if there's no other businesses like yours, then guess what? It's unique just because you're the first one to open it up in the shopping district. So it could be a dance studio or an exercise studio. It includes your product service description, your target market description, and your overall goals and objectives for your business. But like I said, it's usually a few paragraphs, 1 page, easy peasy, but write it last because it will be much easier for you to be succinct after you've answered all the other questions and written your complete plan. The business description, describe the business in detail. Include, my business is a dance studio. We specialize in dance for people of all ages with a concentration for young children, 5 to 15 or whatever. It's located at 103 Ogden Avenue in Chicago, Illinois, 606, whatever the zip code is. It's a subchapter S corporation, and my business is unique because there are none in this area. There isn't a dance studio for a 6-mile radius around the business. And while your business will succeed, you can talk about your expertise, that you were in the Joffrey Ballet for 20 years and you just left the ballet, but now you're going to open up your own dance studio. What is your product or service? Summarize the key technology or concept on which your business is based. Like I said, sometimes the concept just is that you're the only one in the neighborhood, but sometimes think of all the businesses that were invented, the tile mate, and I know that Apple makes a similar product where you attach it to your keys, you link it to your phone, and then you can find, through Bluetooth, you can always find your keys. So sometimes there is very key technology. Think of Alexa or the Google little home, Google Home, I guess it's called. We have one, and sometimes when we just mention the word Google, she perks up and says, what do you want? But we're really just mentioning, oh, Google it, because we can't find the answer of what temperature to cook chicken at. So summarize your key technology and what features and benefits does your product or service have? And when you talk about features, it's always good to talk about the feature, the advantage, and the benefit. So if you say the feature is, my dance studio is in this neighborhood, and the benefit is you don't have to drive, 20 miles or 10 miles to get to another studio. You can walk to my studio. And the benefit is convenience. It's easier for mom and dad or somebody to drop the kids off and pick them up, or they can walk themselves because it's right down the street from a bustling neighborhood. So that's features, advantage, and benefit. It's called FAB so it's easy to remember. How does your product or service solve or satisfy your customers' needs uniquely? Now, this is a unique selling proposition. It's called a USP if you read about it in books or online. And the unique selling proposition is what makes you stand out from your competition. And like I said, sometimes it's just that you're the only one in the neighborhood. It doesn't matter if Chicago has 3,000 dry cleaners, if they've just redeveloped an industrial park and they've turned it into housing and high rises and there's no dry cleaners, guess what? Your business is unique because there's none in the neighborhood, because it used to be Finkel's and it was, a factory. So, and describe why, and it might be that you really have great new technology. Think about the first Spot Hero or some of the other apps that you use that were the first to market, the first Uber, the first, YouTube. Describe why a customer would buy from your business. What big problem are you solving? And don't underestimate that the big problem you're solving is convenience or uniqueness. If you're opening up in a strip mall that has other restaurants, but you're the first Indian restaurant or Indian food serving it, or you're the first vegan, or you're the first restaurant, this was, I think, just in the Tribune this week, where all your products are made with like Beyond type products, where it looks and feels like meat, but it's not really meat. So think about what big problem you're solving and what makes you different, and so why customers would choose you. Define in detail in your target market. When somebody used to come to me, I used to run an entrepreneurship center, and still when I mentor clients, and they say, oh, my product is for everyone. Everybody can buy it. That's the wrong answer. Because there is a specific group of people who are going to be much heavier users. Yes, we'll go back to the dance studio, and you might teach ballroom dancing for people who are going to get married, or you might have a senior afternoon to get people dancing and exercising, and they're lonely and it keeps them stimulated and whatever. But your real target audience might be those youngsters 5 to 10 years old, and the second target audience is 11 to 15, because you want to get the heaviest users, because the heaviest users are going to give you the most bang for your advertising dollar. It's just like with makeup, the heaviest users are women, say 18 to 34. They are by far the heaviest users. Then the next heaviest users are 35 to 50. By the time you're 50, you've already, you have brands that you know and love, and you're more likely to rebuy those brands versus try something new. When you analyze your competition, and you need to, and there is a competitive analysis that Geraldine will also compose that I've created. And in the competitive analysis, because you have to talk about your direct competitors and your indirect or alternative competitors. So you put your business name on the left, and then going down on the vertical axis, you name 4 or 5 competitors that are your biggest competitors. And then across the horizontal axis, you put the most compelling features on why customers buy or use this product or service. All right, so, and it might be the hours of operation, it might be the convenience of paying, that you take Apple Pay and Samsung Pay and Google Pay. It might be that you're the best pizza in the neighborhood, what's across that you have the most variety, or that you have convenient carry out or delivery, what goes across, what factors make customers come to your business. And then also include direct and indirect competitors. And when it's indirect, or let's start with direct, when it's direct competitors, if I'm Coke, why my direct competitor is Pepsi? And if you think about it, Coke and Pepsi still advertise, even though I don't think there's anybody who can really speak, including children probably at 2 or 2.5, that don't know the words Coke or Pepsi, and probably most young children can dance to their commercials. So if I say, Coke, a direct competitor is Pepsi, but alternative or indirect competitors are milk, juice, water, sports drinks, iced tea, those drops that you add to water that flavor water so it's fun. So think about all those direct and indirect or alternative competitors. And what's the positioning of your product? And in positioning, we talk about good, better, best. Are you, okay? Are you on par with most of the other pizza parlors in the neighborhood? Are you better because you have a better crust, or you offer more crust variety? Or are you the best? Are you a Uno's or a Due's? Are you a Giordano's? Are you really one of the pizza giants in Chicago or for your neighborhood? Where is, you define the product packaging? Are you the package? And sometimes you are the package. If you're the real estate agent, you're a big part of the package. If you're lawn care or snow removal, when your people come and they're wearing uniforms, that uniform is the packaging. When I talk about real estate agents, if any of you have ever used one to rent an apartment or buy a house or a condo, they really dress to the nines. They pull up, they have a glorious, meticulously clean car. They're dressed to the nines because they want to show you on first sight that they are the real estate agent for you. They will find you your dream home. Look at how successful they are. And they're the best agent in the city. And like I said, the same thing with lawn care or home repair of any sort, Stanley Steamer, people who clean gutters, etc. When you come and you show up in a uniform, you just give more confidence to the homeowner that you know what you're doing. And then where will your business be located? And is the right location even critical? Are you always going to go to your clients? If you're a house painter and you go to, whether it's interior or exterior, you go to the client to see the house so that you can develop a quote. You can work out of your basement or the second bedroom or the den, etc. So you really have to think about, is the right location critical? And it may not be at all. I do want to recommend, if you are a woman working alone and you live, especially if you live in a single family home, but even if you live in a townhome or you live on a low floor in an apartment complex, I strongly recommend that you get a PO box at UPS store, because they let you use the street address and then the box number is just your suite number, so that people don't know where you live. If you live in a high-rise building with a 24-hour doorman, I think you're less at risk. But if you are a woman alone, and I don't own stock in UPS, full disclaimer, don't own stock, but I just think it's a safety measure that people don't know where you live. The other thing, when we talk about packaging, think about how packaging has revolutionized so many products. And until the competition catches up, that really is the unique selling proposition. Think about Dean's Milk Jug. Dean's Milk was a Chicago-based company, and they invented a bottle that fit the cup holder of cars, because individual servings of milk used to come in little wax boxes and they didn't fit the cup holders. So moms were giving their kids juice and other products that fit the cup holders. Think of Campbell's Cup of Soup or Tide Pods or dishwasher pods, even the mac and cheese now that comes in cups, and a lot of Campbell's products also come It's their chunky soups come in single serve units that you can just pop in the microwave. So packaging can be incredibly useful for differentiating your product and making you really stand out in the crowd. So going back to, is your location critical? So this is actually in Aurora, because a friend who lives in the burbs took these pictures. This is in Aurora. And if you see that little green arrow on the slide, that green arrow is one of the most heavily used Dunkin' Donuts. It's on the corner of Eola and North Aurora. And so many people go there because there's red lights. It's easy to get to. You can get in and out from either Aurora Road or Eola. And it's got great signage. And so it's easy to get to, easy to see, easy to stop and get your coffee. They have drive up. So location here really matters. Now this store that's marked A, this is where location really makes sense. This store, and by the way, never let a real estate agent pressure you into saying like this is the ideal spot, because there's always another spot. Make sure you do your due diligence. You watch traffic patterns during the day. You count heads to see how many people come in and out of the strip mall, how congested the parking is. This A shows a retail clothing store in the back of an industrial park where nobody could find it. You couldn't see the signage. It was ridiculous. There was no street visibility, and it folded almost as quickly as it opened. So, you know, location does make importance for certain retail businesses. If you were an accountant and you could give people direct in, you know, in your industrial park, and you tell people, you know, enter off of so-and-so street and then go past the FedEx box and turn left at, you know, in the industrial park, and then go and see the number at 102, whatever street. You know, that's one thing, but you don't want to be a retail business where you're depending on foot traffic for people to come and find you. So, oh, and the other thing, going back to, let's go back to location, and even this slide of the Dunkin' Donuts. It's very important if you have a retail location, and it doesn't, sometimes when you're in a strip mall, they have, or a real mall, they have specific regulations about what you can do with signage. But if you're in a more, you know, amenable neighborhood, see if you can't get signage that's vertical and horizontal. So you might have your name on the awning horizontally. So if people are walking from far away, they can see where you are. But if you're driving, you want to have a vertical sign hang down so that people can easily see what they're looking for, especially if you're, you know, a sole proprietor, you're only a one store, it's your first store, you haven't franchised yet, you're not a Dunkin' Donuts, you're Donna's Donuts. So, you know, that's important about signage. And in a lot of Chicago neighborhoods, you have to work with your alderman to know what kind of signs are permissible and what you can put up. So know your alderman, love your alderman, and start with him or her before you start looking in binds and designing signs, because a lot of times there are regulations. And sometimes if you rent buildings that were already businesses, the sign can be grandfathered if it had a great sign. That's why I'm trying to think, the little fruit market that's on Clybourne near North Avenue. That's why they don't take down the sign, because it's such a great sign. Even though they've leveled the building and taken away the building, they're leaving the sign up because the sign is probably grandfathered and it's got great street visibility. So how will you price your product or service? You know, are you going to be lower than the competition, on par with the competition, higher than the competition? I would usually recommend, and this is me personally, not the city of Chicago, never be the lowest one in the, you know, product assortment. Don't be you might have a loss leader or a entry-level product. If you're selling mattresses, it's the bare bone mattress that you can get away with and make some money on. But you don't want to always have the cheapest price on everything, because you can't make money that way. Even Dollar General had to raise their, not Dollar General, Dollar Tree had to raise their prices to $1.25 because they weren't making money. So, think about if you want to be on par with the competition, and I certainly love higher than the competition, if you can charge more because you can give the appearance of having cachet that your product is worth more. And sometimes service is worth more. Yes, it costs a few more pennies, but you know what? The service is fabulous. If any of you have ever bought appliances or small electrics or phones or cameras or gym equipment at ABT Electronics, it's in Glenview. It's not a Chicago business, it's in Glenview. And they do have good pricing. They don't always have the best pricing, but we often buy from them because they truly stand behind their products. So yes, it is better to pay a few pennies more, $10 more, but get all the service that you want. So sometimes service, you really can charge more for it. How does your price compare to your direct and indirect competitors? I would say that for the most part, Coke and Pepsi are pretty much priced the same, as well as most other soft drinks. Not so much for some of the vitamin waters are incredibly expensive. And I'm thinking of Fiji water that costs a fortune. And God knows why it tastes like water to me, but I will admit, I used to have to buy Fiji water for a steam iron, and it really recommended, maybe it had no minerals in it and it recommended it, but I never drank the water. I just would put it in the steam iron. Can you be profitable at your chosen price? And this is important because if you're not making money, and it's one thing if you're not making the money the first few months when you open up, just because you've had great expenses to open up your business or to start, you had to pay legal fees, you had to get licenses, etc. But eventually, after several months, you have to start at least getting to break even. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. But you have to start making money or you're not going to last in business long. And one of the newest models is free apps. Free apps are paid by advertisers. So when you play Words with Friends, and every time you take a turn, you see an ad, that's why the app is free, because somebody else is paying to be in front of your eyeballs to show you an ad that they think that you will like. And there's many, many ads like this. There's many websites. Even when you go to YouTube videos that are free videos, they usually make you watch a certain number of seconds of some ad advertising something that they think you want. If you go to a YouTube video that's showing you how to crochet something, guess what? You see an ad to buy yarn at Michael's. So can you be profitable at your chosen price? And if you can't, you won't stay in business very long. How will you promote or advertise your product? And how will you reach your target audience? Now, your target audience, remember, we talked to, are going to be your heaviest users. So whether it's women 18 to 30, obviously you have to, this is important too. You have to realize that for many of your products, the buyer and the user is not the same person. When we talked about dance studios for kids, 5 to 10 years old, they're not buying the service. Their parents are, or their grandparents are. And think about baby diapers or baby food or baby formula. The infants are not buying these products, but mom and dad is. That's why I think Loves or somebody shows you that with your first baby, you're so worried, you buy Pampers, whatever. And by the time it's your second or third kid, you're buying Loves or the more affordable brands. So, you really have to know how you're going to reach your target audience. And mass media is TV, billboards, and national magazines. And very few of you will be able to afford mass media. targeted media, and if you think about it, it's targeted in a way, if you remember WeatherTech first started advertising only on WBBM 105.9 or 780 on your dial, 780 AM 105.9, and they would only advertise during drive times. So when you were driving through snow or slush or sleet or light hail or heavy rains in Chicago, and you thought about what you're bringing in your car every time you stop to run an errand, and then you run back in the car and you're just spilling water all over your floor mats, that was very clever. And they only, and if you buy, the more ad space you buy, the better buy rate you get. And there's also things called flights, buying commercials either on TV or radio, and you buy them in flight. You buy very heavily just for a few days to saturate the market, and then you go dark. But targeted media is direct mail, local radio like WBBM. You're not buying nationally, you're just buying in select markets. Local newspaper, you can buy even in the Tribune and the Sun-Times, you can buy sections of the paper. So you can say, I only want to be in, this quadrant of Chicago because that's where customers are most likely to come. They're not going to come to the north side if they live on the south side, or if they live way west in Oak Park, they're not going to drive to something that's on Clark Street. So you can buy sections of the main newspapers. There's also Valpak, and Valpak has disappeared a lot since the pandemic, but that's when you used to get a whole coupon booklet or coupon envelope of different local businesses. And we talked about regional sections of newspapers. You can also buy regional sections of national magazines, so that if you're in Illinois, but you're maybe on the border of Wisconsin, or you're on the border of Indiana, you might be able to buy a circumference of certain zip codes that go between those two states. Of course, there's Google Adwords, and Google Adwords are when people do a search, for just a product, donuts, that you come up the first in the search, and you can set a limit to, there's a bidding war where I'm Dunkin' Donuts and I'll pay a quarter to be the first on the list that you see when, donut shops near me. But then somebody might beat you out. A Stan's might say, well, I'll pay 35 cents to be the first one you see when you're in a neighborhood that has a Stan's. Personally, Stan's make the best yeast donuts, but Do Right makes the best cake donuts. And it's simply my opinion. It is not the opinion of the Department of Business Affairs. I'm a big donut fan. And in a pinch, yes, I will definitely eat a Dunkin' Donuts, an Entenmann's, anybody's donuts. Love a donut. But there's Google AdWords, there's e-newsletters, there's Facebook. Lou Malnati's, which is certainly a home brand name in Chicagoland. Lou Malnati's does most of their advertising on Facebook because they found they had such loyal followers, because it is a family-owned business. They've been around forever. They do wonderful things in communities, and they have a huge Facebook following. So now they even post ads for help wanted just on Facebook, because then they feel like the people who apply to the ads know their values, know their core values, know what the business stands for, know what the service level is. So don't overlook the power of Facebook. Developing a marketing plan. Answer physical distribution questions. Where will your customers expect to find your product or service? And that's a very important question, because if I say something really common like Coca-Cola or a Pepsi or a Hershey bar or Wrigley gum, think about all the places, or M&Ms. You can find M&Ms in a million places. You can find them in coin-operated machines, in hospitals and in universities and city colleges, and you can find them at the checkout counter. You can find them in drugstores, grocery stores, mass merchandisers, even in hardware stores. They sell a lot of candy, you know, the big box hardware stores. Sometimes I know Menards has a candy area. So, you know, you want your products to be where customers expect to find you. And how will and I always feel that you are never more than 300 feet away from a Pepsi or a Coke, because there are those coin-operated machines everywhere, train stations, bus stations, L stations. You're never, you know, in the front of the grocery store, you're never more than 300 feet away, I think, from a Coca-Cola or a Pepsi. How will your products be distributed? Are you going to sell the products directly to the stores that will then sell them to the customers? Are you going to use sales reps? Do you have, you know, how are you only going to be an online business? Which, by the way, if you make a unique product, hair care products, face cream products, skin products, you know, a family recipe, a lot of these products got started just selling them online, having a store on Amazon. And so, and that helps a lot, because that helps you get into retail stores, because then you can show you have a track record. And you can say people are buying them and they're repeat buyers. We know that 60% of our customers buy the product once a month, you know, 20% buy it every 6 weeks. So don't poo-poo selling directly online. But some of you might go straight to products being sold in other stores. And a lot of grocery products are that way. If you are a baker and you have a commercial kitchen and you want to get your products, Whole Foods, by the way, has the option for the manager to decide to carry your product. So that's how a lot of products get started in Chicago too, is through Whole Foods exposure. So you might want to consider that. And then are you going to sell direct to the consumer, which you might do? And don't overlook farmers markets either. And this is big farmer market season. It might be too late for you to get a stall at some of your farmers markets, but think about it for next year. Do you know who your suppliers will be? And always have multiple suppliers if you need components to make your product. Or even if you have a service business and you provide mats or towels, or you know, you have a local gym and people take showers and you have to have a towel service or a garbage service or a cleaning service. You have multiple suppliers, because you saw what happened during the pandemic when people relied solely on foreign manufacturers for parts that went into American products. Think cars and electronics, and just everything was so goofed up because there were, you know, so many people were shut in around the world. Now, we're not, hopefully never going to have another global pandemic in our lifetimes, but sometimes there's just a fire. So if you have a supplier and he's your laundry service, your towel supplier for the gym, and they have a fire, or they get broken into and something happens, or the store next door has the fire doesn't really hurt the laundry company, but all their towels smell like smoke now, so they need a couple of weeks to sanitize and get all the smoky stench out of their products. You need a backup laundry supply service. So always have multiple suppliers, because it will help you in the long run. So technology requirements. What equipment, software, internet connectivity do you need? Do you have to give all your workers iPads with special software to handle customers? Do they do it on their phone? They all have now. Now, when you get deliveries from a lot of people too, you sign on a smartphone that you've accepted delivery. So what kind of technology requirements, what kind of personnel requirements? Do you need part-time employees, full-time employees, contract, 1099 employees? Are you going to do background checks, bonding? When is somebody a contractor? Let me talk first few minutes about part-time. If you have teenagers, you can hire them to help run your website and design your website, etc. They're probably better at it than you are. And if you pay them a salary is fully deductible. An allowance is not. So think about using part-time help that are your own teenage children or nieces or nephews or neighbor kids that you can actually pay and get the work done. And they might be, and they say that this year, because workers are in such demand, summer jobs are just, kids have their pick of the job. Full-time workers, do they need experience? Can you train them? Be very careful. Oh, by the way, and this is true for all employees, in Illinois, you can no longer ask salary history. Thank God. I wish that rule existed when I was working full-time, because, if you earn less as a woman, then you always earn less because you had to tell what you earned. But it is illegal now to ask anybody what they earned previously or their salary history. Contract employees, there is a 1099 test. If you Google 1099 test, it'll come up. But basically, it's on behavior control, financial, the type of relationship you have. If they're support worker, they're usually a 1099, like your lawyer, your accountant. They only come and close the books. They might do it all remotely. They might come to your business once or twice a year to look over your books or whatever. If it's a lawyer, that you usually go to the lawyers, so they don't really come into your office. But, if it's a cleaner, if you have a storefront business and the cleaning service comes at night, those are contract employees. But and Uber runs up against this, and Lyft and all those people, you can't tell them when to work, how to work, a uniform to wear, etc., because then they are employees. They are not contract workers. So just Google 1099 contractor test, and because the Department of Labor will come after you, and there are stiff penalties if you try to pass off employees as 1099 workers. Resource requirements. What other resources do you need? A website, printed materials, its leave behinds, a physical office, a business space. And you may not, like I said, if you are a house painter, either, or if you're a gutter person, you might rent a small shop for supplies and materials, etc., or one of those warehouse storage places. But really, your billing and stuff, you do it out of the second bedroom or the basement, etc. You don't really need an office space because people aren't coming to you to get their gutters repaired or cleaned. And then external requirements: accountant, lawyer, cleaning service. What do you need? Insurance. Do not underestimate. You do need insurance. Once you hire one other employee, you do need workman's comp insurance. So if they're direct blood relation, or it's you and your spouse, you don't need it. But as soon as you hire one stranger, you need workman's comp, and you need general liability, even if you don't want the postman or postwoman to slip and fall getting into your storefront on an icy morning. So you definitely need general liability insurance. But talk to a good agent. And the best way to find good accountants, lawyers, cleaning services is to ask the other businesses in the neighborhood who they use and how much they like them. Resource requirements. So there's cloud computing, and Microsoft Office and QuickBooks are other competitors to QuickBooks. Grasshopper.com. Grasshopper is one of those services where if they call the office and you're not there, it bounces to your cell phone, etc. And if you're not there, it bounces to the house phone. Regis offices, those are where you just rent office space, but they have like a shared receptionist and copier, etc. Do you need iPads or smartphones for your employees? Are you going to use GoDaddy or Namecheap to get a web domain? Vistaprint, very affordable for business cards, invoices, letterhead, envelopes, etc. And then Google My Business is free. That's where when you look up a business, it shows you the address, the phone number, a link to their website. You can click a button to get Google directions how to get to the business. And it also tells you the hours of operation. And in some of the Google My Business, it tells you, like if it's a restaurant, what are the peak times to go? So if you want to know if you can go and they don't take reservations and you don't want to wait long, you might wait till 8 or 8:30 because then it tells you the rush is over. So that's Google My Business. It is free. You should all get one. Who will be in charge of your business? And what specific qualifications or expertise do you have to run this business? And don't underestimate if you've always had a hobby your whole life, and now you want to open up a business. You've always been a little league coach, and now you're retired, but you want to have a coaching service during the summer or spring break, etc. Don't underestimate that if you've had a hobby that you've really been good at, you've always painted in watercolor and you've even sold some of your work. Do you want to open up a studio teaching other people how to paint in watercolor or acrylics? So don't underestimate a hobby that, it does give you good qualifications to do it as a business. And when will you need to hire employees? And remember too, when hiring your first employees, that you can only, there's so many things in Title 7, it's the Equal Opportunity Code, that you can't mention or ask. You can't ask age or birthplace or disability or, sexual orientation or marital status or race, or if you're pregnant or if you plan on having kids. There's lots of things. So read summaries of Title 7 to know things that you can't ask. Also, you can give people a probationary period. Just don't mention it out loud, because, if you tell somebody they have a 30 or 90-day probationary period, they might construe it as an implied contract. And then if they're really lousy employees and you want to get rid of them in 10 days, they say, well, you said I was on probation for 30 days. You have to pay me for 30 days. So while you can think about a probationary period in your head, don't mention it out loud. And then don't forget workman's compensation insurance as soon as you hire your first employee. What salaries will you pay? Will you pay? Like I said, you can't ask anybody for a salary history. You have to pay what the market will bear or what you can afford, whichever comes first. I will say, when I was in Menards, they advertise in the bathrooms what their starting pay is for part-time and full-time employees, and how you're eligible for a pay raise after, I forget now if it was 90 or 60, 90 or 180 days. What training will you, but the starting rate was over $20. So really, to be a clerk at Menards, I thought that was pretty decent pay. What training will you or your employees require? Do they need special skills? And they might, even if you just use a point of sale register, that's where you can tell, like if you have a restaurant, if you sold 3 tacos, 2 burritos, 1 large Coke, 1 small Coke, that's called a point of sale cash register. They're complicated to use. So you might have to train your employees how to do that, or how to take orders on an iPad or a smartphone app. Will you give drug tests? Will you check backgrounds or bond employees? You have to think about bonding employees, especially if you go into somebody's home, if they're carpet layers, or they lay wood floors, or they do draperies installations, etc. Even if you're the seamstress and you sew the draperies, but you use contract employees to install the draperies, you might need to do background checks as well as bond employees. Who will manage the businesses, the daily and the long-term finances? Are you going to do it? Do you have a partner? By the way, and I don't think that's part of this thing, if you have a partner, you should always have a partnership agreement. It's a formal document. You use a lawyer to draw it up. It doesn't have to be long and complicated, but you decide in advance what the main activities are going to be for one partner and the other, especially if you're 50-50 partners. And you also determine in advance how you're going to buy each other out if anything goes south or you want to, or what are the grounds for buying each other out. And the reason I say this is sometimes it's a business partner, it's a relative, and things go south, or it's your lifelong friend. You've known Bill since he was 5 years old, and you went to kindergarten and all of grammar school together and high school together, and then you went to UIC together. You were always together and the best friends. And Bill is a great business partner and you love him to pieces, but Bill is in a tragic accident and gets killed on I-90. Do you want to be in business with his wife and family or relatives? So that's why you have a buy-sell agreement. Also, if you're a 50-50 business owner, always put in the partnership agreement that if you really can't agree on something that's important for the business, you'll use a third-party independent arbitrator who makes the decision. They listen to both of you, and then they decide what's the best course for the business's success. So don't underestimate the power of having a business agreement, especially if it's a simple or proprietorship, partnership, or if it's one where you have partners. How will you process and record sales? Important to know, are you going to use a point of sales cash register? Are you doing it online? Are you using QuickBooks? Are you using something else from Intuit? How are you recording sales? Does your business have special local or federal regulations? And remember, in Illinois, this is, if I were in front of you, I'd ask this trick question. When do you charge Illinois sales tax? And the reason it's a trick question is because in Illinois, you charge sales tax on products, but not on services. So if you go to the car mechanic and you buy 4 tires, he charges you sales tax on the physical tires, but not on the labor to install the tires. So think about that. Also, if you're a mechanic, there's special rules on how you get rid of used motor oil, et cetera. So there are a lot of local and federal regulations, and you need to investigate them and go to a good research library. There, obviously the best is the main library in Chicagoland, the one at State and Van Buren. They have a great resource department and a business resource department, but you can also let your fingers do some Googling. Also, you have to think about, will you do a project proposal or a request for projects? If you do government contracts, and you can just be a, like local, Simple Mills. Simple Mills is a Chicago-based company. It started out at the University of Chicago, and they make gluten-free products. But say they want to sell to the Army or the Navy or the Marines, you can do contract packaging for the government. And to do that, you need a PTAC to help you get the request for proposal. And a PTAC is a free Illinois, they provide technical service for government. It's a procurement technical service assistance center. Procurement Technical Service Assistance Center. And that's a PTAC. And just Google PTAC Illinois. There's also Small Business Development Centers, Illinois, and they'll come up. And these are free Illinois agencies that work with a small business development center. And your neighbor, the city of Chicago also has neighborhood hubs at local chambers of commerce that help new businesses get started. But small business development centers have a wide range of services and they are free. Sometimes they charge nominal fees if they're giving classes and you want to attend a class. But both PTAX and small business development centers provide free services. And who will be in charge of your inventory and inventory control measures? You know, do you have some type of inventory control software? And you have to be especially important if you're selling food, because you want to make the food with the nearest expiration date get sold first versus the further expiration date. And also if there's food, you need a food safety plan. It's called a HACCP plan. It's hazardous analysis and critical control points, so that if you were making a food product, like I said, Simple Mills, and they used an ingredient that was somehow tainted, that's how there's recalls, there's E. coli and something that whatever, you have to know which batch it went into. But that's other lectures. Also, what loss prevention policies do you have in place? Operating a management plan, avoid some big mistakes, choose the right type of entity. To choose the right type of entity, you talk with your attorney and your accountant, and they will help you decide. It's really based on how likely are you to get sued? And if you get sued, how much damage would people sue you for? So if you're a dry cleaner and you have a simple partnership or a sole proprietorship, it might be okay because you might have insurance, and the worst you'd have to do is replace the garment at the new replacement cost. So you ruin a dress that had sequins in it and she really only paid $150 for it, but to replace the same dress now with increased prices, it costs $249. You know, if the insurance will pay for it or you could afford it, it might be okay for you to have a simple type of partnership or simple sole proprietorship of a business. But you might, if you have a chance of really getting sued, where they can take your, because in a sole proprietorship or a simple partnership, they can attack your personal assets. So if it was a restaurant and you gave food poisoning to 40 people at a party you know, catered, then you might need, you know, to be in a subchapter S and LLC, a real corporation, where the business itself is a person and they can only sue you for the business assets. So, but your accountant and your lawyer will tell you what you need to be. This is where I talked about the partnership agreement. All right, so I'm better than I thought. I mentioned it here. The buy-sell agreement, we already mentioned. What insurances do you need? General liability, workman's comp. Errors and omissions are more for professional services. So if you're a lawyer or an accountant and you screw up, or you're a builder, you're a home builder, or you're a roofer, and you make a mistake and somebody's house really, you know, floodwaters come in and it's bad, the whole roof washes up, you know, you might need errors and omissions insurance. If you're an architect, you know, and you're setting up your own shingle, then you might need errors and omissions insurance. Key employee insurance is interesting. If you have a partner, and say it's one partner, it's your spouse, your best friend, and you do all the selling and they take care of all the back office. They hire the employees and they take care of the bookkeeping and they take care of the pricing and the billing. You might, because you're the person who sells, you are the rainmaker, they might have key employee insurance only on you. And what key employee insurance does, say you take a $500,000 policy out, that way, if anything happens to you, that gives the business a $500,000 so they can hire an expert to run the business till they can formally replace you. So that's what key employee is. But it's one of the things that you buy once the business is up and running and you really start making money. And, you know, when Apple first opened up in the garage, they didn't have key employee insurance on the couple of, you know, key founders. They didn't have it till they really started to make something and make lots of money. And also a big problem is underestimating startup costs and underestimating the length of the sales cycle. So if you sell something that's expensive, carpet, carpeting and carpet installation, floor and floor installation, car repair, anything that takes a lot of money, building design, house painting, gutter cleaning, anything where there's a longer sales cycle. Trust me, it's longer than you probably anticipated. So that should be built up into your startup costs. Have you prepared a break-even analysis? And break-even, I mentioned it earlier, is where total revenue equals total expenses, total costs. You're not making money, but you're not bleeding cash. Let me just take a sip. So, your rent's paid for, your raw materials are paid for, your employees are paid for, you're just not making money. And then have you estimated your initial sales year? And have you prepared a monthly cash flow? I have given Geraldine, who she will post, a break-even analysis sheet. It's in Excel, all the math's in place. When she posts them, both that and the cash flow, monthly cash flow, save those as the master, so that then if you goof up one of the cells, you can go back and look and see how to correct it, because sometimes you do a cut and paste. And when you do your cash flow, it's very important that you start out with your expenses, because you're more likely to know your expenses, even in the break-even analysis, and you can back into what your sales have to be, because then you can test for reality land. Can you really, maybe you need a smaller place, or maybe you need to, just sell online first and not have a storefront. So, do your homework on paper, because this business plan, the cash flow and the break even on paper are your cheapest tools. You're not spending any money. You're just planning it. And there is a cash flow handout and a break even analysis. Also, does your business have seasonality issues? And most businesses do. Grocery stores have some seasonality because their product mix changes when it's summer and it's barbecue and more people are eating outside, and maybe they carry briquettes and lighter fluid and those long lighters so that you don't get on fire when you throw a match into the briquettes. So there's some seasonality for most businesses, but some have super seasonality. Think of candy. If you are a candy maker and you make Halloween candy, if you're Ferrara, which is a local company that makes lemon heads, and you make Halloween candy, you have to make it in the height of the summer. You start in spring and you make it in, spring and early summer, so that it's all ready to ship in August. Because did you ever notice how Halloween candy shows up the day after Labor Day in stores? And so you have to buy the raw materials to make the candy. If you start making it in April, maybe March, well, you're buying the raw materials in February. So, and you're not going to start getting the sales till August when they start ordering, or maybe late July when the stores place their orders for the candy that you ship in August. So think about the cash flow with seasonality. And then a lot of products have seasonalities. Companies that do tax refunds, appliances, home electronics, TV, so many are sold right before football season, et cetera, because they want to watch it on a big screen. So, and they get tax refunds. So when people get tax refunds, a lot of times they tend to buy home appliances that are expensive because they just got money back from the government. How much will it cost you to open or expand your business? And so think about that. Other seasonality businesses are swimsuits, and don't underestimate landscaping. Landscaping, if I have landscapers listening out there, they have 5 seasons: summer, grass; fall, leaves; winter, snow removal; spring, planting. But also they have Christmas decorating is the 5th season, where in November they put up the seasonal decorations and then they take them down in January, early January. So there are 5 seasons for landscapers. You heard it here first. What are your personal financial responsibilities? You know, do you know how much it costs you to live a month with your family? Do you have a nest egg? Do you have a working spouse? How much can you invest? Can you get financial support from other family members? And it is a good, if you borrow from family members, it is the worst Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays ever. So think about it before you really do it. I don't recommend it unless it's the last resort. Think about crowdfunding, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, those types of things. So, you know, there are other loans, SBA loans. I love SBA loans. So local banks sometimes and credit unions often have special programs in neighborhoods to support neighborhood businesses. So think about getting money elsewhere, not your family and friends. Do you have collateral for a traditional lending resource, an SBA loan or a bank loan? Can you get financing terms from your vendors? Can you get a cosigner for your loan? By the way, don't start planning your business on your credit cards, because when sales take longer and it takes longer to open up, you know, you don't want to ruin your credit so that then you can't get a traditional loan, because now you're borrowed up to your hilt on 12 different credit cards. So do not finance your business on your credit cards. It really is not a good thing. Can you get terms from your vendors? That's if you have to buy raw materials, can they give you 45 days to pay or 60 days to pay? Another thing is a factor. If you have a retail business and or even other businesses and you are selling to name brand companies, say you make a new cupcake and you're selling to Walmart or to Jewel or to Whole Foods, you know, once you get an invoice, you can sell it to a factor as soon as you invoice the product. And invoice factoring is the factor might give you back 93 cents on the dollar, but you get the cash right away. You don't have to wait 30, 60, 90 days for the vendor to pay you. The factor gives you the 93 cents. Then if they get paid quickly, sometimes they even rebate you another couple of pennies because the client paid them quicker. But it is a way for a lot of startup businesses to not have a lot of debt and to have cash flow, because cash is king when you are starting a small business. And then I mentioned you have a cosigner for a loan. By the way, if you borrow less than $50,000 from the SBA, but the SBA only gives you can only use 20% of the loan for the build out. And you really have to be almost ready to put the key in the door and start making sales, but it could help you buy inventory or pay employees. If it's under $50,000, they only secure the loan with the assets for the business. They don't attach your personal home or condo, et cetera. But if you borrow more than 50,000, and by the way, even less than 50,000, with the SBA, you always repay Uncle Sam. They will take it out of your Social Security when you retire, but you never not pay Uncle Sam. A lot of credit cards now tell you what your FICO credit score is. Discover, Chase, all sorts of credit cards. Bank of America has one. Citibank has one. So do you know your credit score? If you don't, you can call toll free, or this is not the people in tights where it charges you money that people used to sing about getting your credit report. You don't see that now because so many credit cards give you a FICO score. But this is the annualcreditreport.com where you get a free credit report. It will be unscored. They charge for the scored one. But you should get one from TransUnion and 4 months later, get the one from Equifax and 4 months later, get the one from Experian, so that you're always seeing that there's no mistakes. And often the mistakes, when they say on TV on 60 Minutes, 80% of credit reports have mistakes. Sometimes the mistakes are minuscule. They say unit number instead of apartment number, or they say, you know, the wrong, you know, they say avenue instead of street for your home address. Like the mistakes are immaterial. So, and you can, and don't ever pay anybody to correct your credit score, because those are all scams. What they do is they write everybody, they tell them that you don't own the debt. The people by law have to take the debt away from you on your credit report, but they have, I forget if it's 30 or 45 days to prove the debt's really yours. When they really prove it's yours, it goes right back on your credit report and you've paid a fortune for nothing. So do not pay those. FICO scores go from 350 to 850. And also, if you are going to apply for a real loan, you have to tell the lender how you're going to use those loan proceeds. SMART goals, they are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-related, include measurable goals. So in my first 6 months, I'm going to make sales. They're going to be growing by 10% every month, but I will not be at break even. But starting in month 7, I reach break even and I am cash flow positive by the end of 8 months. So specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time related. 1-year goal and 3-year goals, specific, measurable objectives, market share objectives, revenue, profit, margins. And this is me. So now we have 15 minutes for questions. And that's how to find me.
Great. Thank you so much, Donna. Let me start looking at the questions. How does location work if I sell online, or any advice?
So for location, if you sell online, you just really need a safe, secure place for your inventory. If you're hand making quilts and you make them to order, you don't need anything. You can work out of the basement. They do have rules. The IRS has rules that if you use a second room and you convert it to an office, it's not supposed to have a TV or a bed in there. I just tell you, TVs are pretty portable now. So if you had a flat screen and you had to move it out, if the IRS was coming to inspect you, you could. But, if certain businesses that you build to order, they can definitely be in your home. Same thing, like I said, if you're gutter cleaning or if you do lawn care, you can rent a shed for your equipment and have your workers meet you there in the morning, and then you just give out assignments, who's going to Skokie, who's going to Evanston, who's going to the south side, who's going to the north side. So a lot of businesses can be run for your home. You're just doing the billing and the bookkeeping.
Great. Next question. A lot of questions about it being recorded. The webinar is being recorded and will be posted on youtube.com/Chicago BACP. And I put that in the chat. The handouts will be sent after the webinar. Donna mentioned a few of them. There are some great resources that she provides. So I'll be sending that to everyone who has attended. Is there a good resource for low-cost location site analysis?
Well, if you hire a real estate agent, a commercial real estate agent, they, sometimes provide the information for free, like the comparables, like what the rents are from the other shop owners of similar sizes. But sometimes you just have to sit with a counter and see how much traffic there is. You might be able to, but here's something that you can use that is free, but it's not that easy to use. So you might want to go to the library and get a little help from the resource people, is the US Census Information. Because you can look at all sorts of census information for neighborhoods, et cetera, the age, so that if you wanted to be in a dance studio and you wanted to be in Evanston, or, it tells you the ages of the kids and how many there are, et cetera. So that stuff is free. There is also there is the Illinois Manufacturers Directory that you do not buy it. It's expensive. Go to the main library on State Street. The Illinois Manufacturers Directory tells you all the Illinois manufacturers they are. And it's a great way for you to do hunting if you want to sell a product that's sold to a manufacturer. Like if you make that stuff that cleans up a spill, when you may have a factory floor spill, Yeah, it's like, I don't know, like special little sawdust stuff. You know, you can find out who would be a likely customer to buy your good or service. Same thing if you're a service business and you want to target, I want to be an accountant to businesses that make up to $500,000 a year. So if they're manufacturers, you could find that in the manufacturers directory, but there's also an Illinois retail directory. But like I said, go to the library. These are books. There also is a lot online service, and they might have a license where you could look online.
Great, thank you. Is workers' compensation insurance required for 1 to 2 short-term contractors?
That you have to ask an insurance agent, because I don't really know. It's not, you need just general liability if it's like for your accountant or your lawyer, and the accountant comes once in a blue moon and looks at your books. But if they're really working at the business, you might need it. Otherwise,
Okay.
the general liability might be sufficient, but if they fall or get hurt, but you need an insurance agent for that.
This is a follow-up question from the low-cost site analysis. It just says Dunkin', McDonald's, and other franchise operations use extensive criteria for location selection. What resources available for small independent efforts? You kind of touched base on that, but I just want to say the follow-up.
Yeah, I would say also ask your alderman, because your alderman, and this might be public information too, because you know how they redistrict everybody and they know it's based on how many people live in the community. Your alderman might have that information. And like I said, if not, it might be available in the Census Bureau by zip code. And the US Postal Service can show you where each little zip code is, because I've never figured out why O'Hare, which really is in Des Plaines, belongs to Chicago, like they've annexed that little chunk of land that really is not part of Chicago. They've made it Chicago, but you can do a lot of census information by zip code.
Follow-up question on insurance. What is the best insurance companies for small business startups, general liability, errors and omissions? Also, what are some reasonable monthly insurance rates? We usually don't. Go ahead, Donna, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't know if I can talk about the rates, but what you need is like insurance agents that sell more than one brand. And there are, so you need insurance companies, but not where they advertise a logo that it's, you know, the people with State Farm or the other ones. You know, you need an agent, so then you can compare things and they can sort of fit you in the best thing. And if not, just compare 2 or 3 of them. You know, go to an American Family, go to Allstate, go to a State Farm, and just compare the prices. But some agents represent more than one.
Great. If there's any other questions, we'll give you a few minutes to put them in the chat. We have one question come in. How long does it take to get a business license? And I could take that one. It depends on the business activity and what license is being applied for. You could call 74-GO-BIZ or come down to City Hall in our small business center on the 8th floor. Donna, they're asking for the name of the book again, please.
I know, I was just going to type it in. So it's
awesome. Thank you.
Whoops. Business Model Generation by Alexander, Osterwalder, and his company, because he makes a few different templates, but in this template you can find online is, that's the company that I've given you the handout for, the business model canvas.
There is a question.
There, I just posted it.
Oh, great. Thank you. Any suggestions for NFPS?
What is an FPS? Oh, an assumed name. Doing business as, is that what you're talking about?
That's a
We
different
can-
question, but let's tackle that one and whoever,
All right. 'Cause I
not for
don't know.
profits.
All right, so non-for-profit, it takes, first of all, a very long time to get certified as a real 501c3, and you need a special lawyer, and there is an agency that can help you, and they've changed names. Geraldine, do you remember the name? It used to be and I would speak for them too. It used to be like the Community Law Center, but they changed names slightly. But if you type up,
It's CCRUL, yes.
Yeah,
So
you
the
can
city of
put-
Chicago does fund the neighborhood business development centers. You could go on the ACP's website and find a listing of those. There's always local chambers in your neighborhood as well. And then the state also has the small business development centers. So those are always.
right, but there
good
is, it used to
resource.
be the Chicago Community Law Center, and they changed names, but Google new name for Chicago Community Law Center that would help bona fide nonprofits get certified as a 501c3. They would donate their time. It's a nonprofit itself, but it is, it's a long process. So that was that. And the other one was, what was the other question about? Hold on. So that was non-for-profit, and what was
Yes. The law project changed to Chicago Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights.
Thank you. Okay.
No
And
worries. The next question. Is an assumed name the same as a business license?
an assumed name is when you say like you're a sole proprietor, but you're doing business as, Dunkin' Donuts, like you buy a franchise or something, or you make up a different name, Tires R Us or whatever. It's different. The money, the business account, it says Tires R Us, the checks say Tires R Us, but all the money flows through to Donna Rockin. So that's an assumed name, doing business as a DBA. They can Google DBA to, the significance of a DBA name. It's doing business as.
Don, I just want to clarify, is there another name of a book you suggested earlier? Or is that the same one you just put in the chat?
No, that's the one I put in the chat box, but the other one that I like, and I'll type this in, is, let's hold on, I have to get where I'm typing, is a book by Osterweiler's partner, Eric.
Donna, make
Rice.
sure when you're putting it in the chat, it's going to everyone and not just me as the panelist.
All right, I will. Oh, it says oh, I see. All right, sorry. Can you make that other one public? Can you do a cut and paste?
Sure.
Okay, and this is called the so let's see now.
I just put it in the chat for everyone. Please let me know if you see it.
Yes, I'll do everyone for this one. All right, sorry about that. So Eric Rice, who is a business partner who helped with the business model generation, he also does a book called The Lean Startup, and it talks about developing an MVP, a minimum viable product. And a lot of times it's just talking to people in the neighborhood about, do they want that service in the neighborhood? But it's like the bare minimum where you're just describing it, or you're showing them a prototype, but the prototype has no guts in it. And it's so that you can design a product or a service so that the people will want it. It's like, so the dogs like the dog food, and literally if you're making a product that is a product, you can show it to them. Or if you're baking, bread and you're doing it a gluten-free thing, you can give out samples and say, do you like it? How would you rate it? Crunchy, tasty, whatever, salty, I don't know. but you make a sample product to see if people like it. And this is especially important when you're creating a complicated app. Don't create one that people have no interest in. And really, in that case, it's very important to show people a minimum viable product, because a lot of times it's like a big yawn, like, why do we need it? So that's another book.
Okay, great. Thank you. If there's any other questions, if you could please put them in the chat, we'll give it another minute. Lots of thank yous.
You're welcome.
They're very excited about the additional handouts, which is great.
Yeah, the questionnaire with all the questions in it for the business panel. The business plan is a real help, and that cash flow is a lifesaver, as well as break even. And when you do break even, I should mention, do it in a month when sales should be great, and do it in a month when they should be sluggish. So that if there's seasonality, say you have a bakery, you might do really great business November, December, but then in January, when the weather's icky in Chicago and it's freezing and it's snowing, your sales might go right down the tube. So and then they pick up again when the weather's better and people are walking and they say, ooh, let's get a cupcake, a donut. So do it in a good sales month and a bad sales month, so you can really see with your eyes wide open how your cash flow is going to be, because cash is king, and you need the great months to carry you through when sales are weaker.
Okay.
The slides are, I give you the slides.
Yes, the slides will be part of the follow-up email. The webinar is recorded and will be posted on youtube.com/ChicagoBACP. I will put the link when I send the follow-up email, but if you want to go directly to youtube.com/ChicagoBACP, it will be posted soon. Another question on, I have an assumed name. What is a business license for?
It's for the city to keep an eye on you. I'll let you answer that, Cheryl.
So the assumed name is, like Donna said, if you're doing business as, so ABC Inc., but you're doing business as the Kleenex box. It's the business license is for legal activity to run your business in the city of Chicago. The PowerPoint slide will be sent with the email. Oh, great. I got a lot of my questions answered without asking. I look forward to the book. This is great. The post email will probably be sent, I would say, by the end of the day today, if not Monday morning.
And like I said, do not buy the ebook for that business model, because I did it. I was getting on a plane and I was writing a grant for it. That's what I was going to use for the lecture, the training program. So I bought the ebook. I got on the plane. The stewardess said, you can now open up your electronic devices. I launched the book, and the first sentence is the book is, this book is better as a book. So like I said, and I'm sure our libraries have copies of it. Save money. You're starting a business. You could use that $12 someplace else, or $15.
Great. Well, that is all the questions that we have. Donna, thank you as always for a great presentation and taking your time out to help educate these entrepreneurs. Attendees, thank you so much for attending. Hoping everyone has a safe and happy weekend. Amazing presentation. I agree. It's awesome. The email will be sent to you.
It's always a pleasure, and I'm sorry we always have technical difficulties.
No, it's okay. We get through it. We always get through it, and it becomes a great presentation.
It's always a pleasure. Anytime. Take care, everybody. Have a good, safe weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.